What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Bitchuation Room show. It's a show. That's right. I'm just calling it a show now. It's not a podcast. It is a podcast. It's also a live stream. What's up, you guys? I'm here visiting my mom, chilling. Her internet, it may go out. Despite my best efforts at trying to bring my mother into the 21st century, things happen, y'all. So forgive me for any technical difficulties right off the bat, out the gate. But it's going to be a goddamn good show because this is not a few things. First of all, it's the last Sunday show for the Bitchuation Room. We're moving to Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's right. It'll be good. And maybe I'll do a Sunday stream just generally, just for shits and gigs. But for now, once again, what do we say? Mama needs her weekends back. That's right. And Mama gonna be actually a mama in just a couple months, so that's fun. And gestating. I got my little kid doing just straight like snow angels in my uterus, just like nya, 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 nya. It's creepy. It's not disgusting. It's mostly creepy. It's very cool. Here's what being pregnant feels like. It feels like having gas, but it doesn't hurt. So you know what I mean? That feeling where you're like blue, and you're like, oh shit, I need a bathroom right now. It's like that, but it actually feels kind of cool. Not doing it this Tuesday. Next Tuesday, August 7th, I believe, is the first date. But thank you guys so much for being here. If you're here on YouTube, please share and like the stream right now. If you're on Twitch, what's up? Thank you so much for subscribing. If you are listening as a podcast, make sure to give this podcast 5 stars because we have the one and only Emma Vigeland of the Majority Report joining me in a little bit to talk about. I feel like this is going to be an extra wonky episode. There's a lot of legislation. We got to get to it all. And Emma is going to join me for a bonus episode. I'm very excited about this because we're going to talk about this strategy that the DCCC is employing, the fundraising wing of the Democratic Party to put a bunch of money into lesser evil Republican candidates in an attempt to thwart MAGA candidates. Is that a good strategy? Is it a 70 chess Democrats really think they can defeat MAGA candidate strategy, or is it just more of a we'll see? I have a lot of thoughts on it. We're going to look into a Vox article that I thought might have gotten it a little bit wrong and see what one of those ads looks like. So become a patron to get access to that. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room is where you go to get your own special little icon, your own special little rainbow flag of a stream, of an RSS feed, and you get all that bonus content, all the people that we have on the show, gabbing for another 15. But also one of the main organizers of the very first Starbucks union that has spread like wildfire to the point where, oh yeah, mad retaliation now from Starbucks. Suddenly they have no more money. Oh my God, they can't keep franchises open. They can't keep stores open anymore because of the efforts of my guest, Jaz Brisack, who's going to be joining me. Super excited to have her on and ask her what she thinks about this retaliation, what it means to work in a unionized retail store. What's it like? Do you get treated differently by even customers? So what was it like for this unionized effort to even go down, and what's the future hold? So stay tuned for that. Super excited to have her here, and fucking stoked to have you guys here again. Moving to Tuesdays. Any other announcements? Tip the show on Venmo, TBR-live, TBR chat. If you do not fuck with Patreon, don't know why you wouldn't though. And with that, let's get into it, guys. Put your goddamn bitch caps on. We're going to do this. I'm going to freak out. I've got a lot of cords. All right. This is my morality. What are you bitching about? Alrighty, so here's a few things that there's a few. One very quick thing: baby names, man. Everyone's like, "What are you gonna name your baby? What are you gonna name your? What do you want me to name my baby?" Seriously, no, I'm serious because that's the you. I know it's the question you're always supposed to ask. Two questions you get asked, right, as a pregnant person. One, what are you craving? Which you're like, healthcare. Next, full-time work. Next, Mr. Hollywood, give me a job. Uh, the second thing people ask you is, what are you going to name your baby? And there's no right answer. If I told you straight up right now, I'm going to name my baby Broomhilda, what? What are you going to say? What are you going to fucking, there's no right answer. Because if it's a name you like, you'll be like, oh, I love that. If it's a name you don't really like, you'll be like, that's sweet. I once had a like, you don't know what, there's no right answer. Versus like, I don't say like, hey, what's up? My name is Francesca. Do you like my name? No. You don't get a say in people's names. They're just their names. That's why I feel weird sharing, like, that maybe I will name my kid, after a star system. You don't know I won't. I'll put a bunch of, it'll be the fucking, what's pi? 3.1444. What is it? I'm great at math. All right. But the real thing that I'm voting. The real thing that I'm bitching about, you guys, is I don't know if you heard, but this week, one of the pieces of legislation that 2020 Republican congresspeople voted down, it passed, thankfully, was an anti-human trafficking bill. Now, this isn't the FOSTA SESTA sort of criminalizing sex work and putting people who advertise on back pages and on the internet at risk. It's not sort of like a government surveillance. This is just a basic run-of-the-mill, hey, let's make sure people aren't trafficked into the country, and if they are, there's like signs for them and like hotlines to call. We've all seen those, in airports and things like this. And no, 20 Republicans said, nah, we like that. We, in fact, are into it because, yeah, they are the party of pedophiles, even though they profess to be against QAnon and the Dark Lord being controlled by Hillary Clinton's insatiable desire for cheese pizza, child pornography. So they voted against it. We're talking Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Matt Gaetz, which I know what y'all are thinking. You're like, well, that checks out. Matt Gaetz is, a pedophile 17-year-old trafficking her across the border from, another state into Florida. Was it Louisiana? That makes sense. Put him aside. But you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, and they're like, no, we don't want this anti-trafficking bill. What the fuck? So they're always showing their whole ass, but this is another moment where they're showing their whole ass. The last thing, and I gotta move on. Last thing I'm gonna bitch about, I think the CHIPS Act that Congress passed, the Senate also passed, and they're very excited about. This is basically like the semiconductor, like make more microchips in the United States, like screw China. Ew, like China's beating us. We gotta beat them. Blah, 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 blah. That bill passed and everyone thinks it's great. Everyone's like, this is amazing. Even Representative Katie Porter is like, this is great. Everyone's heralding it, and actually it's just a giant handout to the tech sector, like Intel and Texas Instruments. Like, bitch, you're not satisfied with the $80 you made me pay in high school, Texas Instruments, for your stupid calculator? Yeah, sure, I didn't remember what pi was, but like, calm down. Anyway, it is mostly a tax incentive and a corporate handout. And I guess we're supposed to be excited about it. So I think that's indicative of where the Democratic Party is going and how there's a new narrative, which is Joe Biden is back. Biden's back. His poll numbers are going up. And it's like, is he? Are we going to actually get stuff done? So Emma's going to be here, and we're going to talk about it. And I apologize if my mic is totally fucking up. Is there a lot of wind in this room? God damn it. Oh, Lord, you guys. We might just have to We might just have to go. We might have to go back to basics with the mic situation. All right. Well, with that, we will see what I can do. Hang on. Let's get some inside baseball here. All right. Why don't we change my mic, hot people? And go here. How's this? Can you guys actually hear me on my all right. Sweet. So now that I've said everything I needed to say and all the important things, it's time to bring in for the hour. Super excited to have her, the co-host of the Majority Report. Please welcome Emma Vigeland.
Oh, hello. Look at that.
Oh, what's going on, Emma?
You're out of the wind tunnel.
I'm out of a wind tunnel. God, that was so scary. That's upsetting. I have to go back and I'll re-record it. It'll be
Don't worry.
Magic.
It's not live, so you're all good.
No, who's here live? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I try with anywho, thank you for being here. It's been many months since you've been back on the show. And this is our last Sunday show, so I feel like it might be the last time I get you for a while. Unless I'm like, hey, do you want to stay in the studio and talk for another hour about politics?
Honestly, maybe Tuesdays might be better for me because Sundays I'm always running around doing nonsense. But you caught me at a good weekend, so all
Hell
good.
Yeah. I'm so happy to have you here. Emma, what are you bitching about today?
What am I bitching about? I guess I should have given this some thought, right? Here's what I'm bitching about. So I've been trying to make this point over and over again on the Majority Report because I think that there are a lot of well-meaning people who are emphasizing rape and incest exemptions in legislation as well, one, they're caving into the framing of it. And when I say that, what I mean is that, highlighting these extreme cases of rape and incest and abortion laws being so draconian and cruel in those instances, it does have value to a certain extent. But when you emphasize that above all others, you are caving into the framing that the right wing wants, which is that abortions are only allowable in very specific circumstances, and there has to be a threshold of violation and violence for an abortion, an immoral act in and of itself, to be acceptable.
And what is that threshold of violence?
Right. And so the threshold of violence is rape or incest, they say, right? But in reality, if you were to get an abortion, say you're a victim of incest or you're a victim of rape, you have to prove that in the court of law. Pretty sure the timeline for needing an abortion is shorter than that of a trial and conviction of a rapist or a person who, you victimized you with incest, for example. Also, that requires the victim of those crimes to go to the law in an expedient manner, and particularly in cases of incest, it's a family member. I mean, they make the bar so high. And the reason that they do that is because they know that it's a red herring. And there's no real reality in which that exemption is viable in action.
Yep.
And so even talking about it and caving to that framing is a way to soften the blow for them, for them to appear less cruel, and also to feed into the stigmatization of abortion as anything other than a health decision made by an individual for their own reasons that frankly doesn't involve anybody else.
Right. Absolutely. And I think the whole safe, legal, rare line that the Democrats were peddling for so long, we need abortion to be safe, legal, and rare. And the rarity versus actually normalizing it. And so over the years, almost playing into the very
the backlash and the almost like just like almost setting yourself up, being like like it's like passing gay marriage and being like, yeah, I totally believe in gay marriage, except when you're really in love, or like when you're like unless you gotta have a beach wedding,
Right.
like legal and beach wedding. Not enough gay people are having beach weddings. Looks like we got to take away the right to get married. Like it's so fucking weird to put this weird stipulation when in fact we know back then and now, like, yeah, no, it's common and also a lot, like 60% of people who want abortions are already parents. So like not normalizing it is one thing. And then you're exactly right. Like setting people up to just think about the worst circumstances possible, which honestly, to my mind, it's good right now because it's grabbing headlines. But I do feel like Fox learned its lesson from the 10-year-old in Ohio. And they're like, oh, we're never going to cover that kind of a story.
Oh, right.
Ever
Exactly.
again.
Yeah. And so, it is good for an initial shock value, but I do think there's, as you mentioned, the Democrats' messaging on this, they barely even want to say the word abortion. I mean, they're so ossified leadership that I think they make a variety of messaging errors. One of them is the one I just mentioned, but the other is that, they make it continuously about a personal privacy right? You have a right to a private healthcare decision. But if they were actually serious, they would make it about a robust right to health care. Yep. But they're so afraid of having that conversation. I mean, it's the same reason that Nancy Pelosi pushed for COBRA extensions, which are way more bureaucratic and way less efficient in the middle of COVID, as opposed to temporarily expanding Medicare or Medicaid. And what would that do, right? Then people will be like, wait, why can't we do this all the time, right? Why can't we just have healthcare as a right and there be a single payer system? You could just expand Medicare slowly, year by year, until it covers everybody, which is what Medicare for All is supposed to do. And they're so terrified of having that conversation, of that door being cracked just a little bit, that they'll make it about, we'll do something way more expensive and inefficient that people freaking hate in COBRA. And then with abortion, we'll make it about personal privacy and your individual's right to their own private decision, as opposed to like, no, this is healthcare and we should be covering this as a government.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think the last thing I actually like the privacy line, but that's only because I think it's such a right-wing talking point for them to be like, big government needs to leave me alone. And like, so that I feel like it's an angle to get right-wingers on board, but it's not, what we're talking about is broad reproductive health care. And if it's someone who has a wanted pregnancy that ends in a miscarriage and they're told to bleed out instead of get a routine D&E, or someone who's suffered incest, rape, or whatnot, like it's actually all part of the same healthcare system, reproductive health rights. So like it's good as a pure defense mechanism. This is about privacy, but it's not good if you're looking to actually expand and deepen the right that's been around for 50 years at this point. I mean, that's the thing I think about women in the 70s and people in the 70s fighting for it. And the idea that nothing had gotten done in 50 years since they achieved this. There was no, like the roots were not completely shallow, an unwatered, just sort of dying, tree of reproductive rights. That's very sad.
But that's all the Democrats know how to do, right? Is do prevent defense. They never understand that the best defense is a good offense. I mean, and that is a fundamental lack of, understanding with this current leadership. The younger you get, I think they get it, but that's going to take a little bit of while for them to ascend.
That's so true. That's sports talk, y'all. M&O Sports. All right. Okay, we got to get into this week. It's been a lot. So a few things I wrote down in my mushy little pregnant brain. A few things happened. Ivana Trump, Donald Trump's second wife, I believe, died.
First wife, because then there was Marla, right? Marla Maples after, and then sweet Melania.
Because of the nature of her grave, I was like, that's got to be second wife.
Oh, total second
status.
wife. Like throw her in a pit, no coffin, just mud.
A shallow mud pit. So okay, let's start that over. Donald Trump's first wife, died, and all her kids and her ex-husband decided she should be buried in a very menial grave on Trump's Bedminster, New Jersey golf course, like right by the first hole, which not only feels disrespectful, but honestly, as some folks have been digging, could save the Trump family from paying taxes on their real estate, personal property, business, sales, income, or inheritance, because they put their mom's body there. And you know what? They always say, marry an asshole, get buried by the first hole. My question is, what does the tombstone read? Is it like Ivana Trump, mother, wife, sand trap?
You know, I retweeted that thing too, and I'm hearing Bobby Big Wheel was a great account to follow, said it's not true that he doesn't save taxes on it. So I promptly unretweeted it. But wouldn't it have been so perfect if that was actually the case? Because I mean, it sounded legit to me. I don't really know the specifics of it yet, but
they're people are digging into, I mean, her grave for sure. But like they're digging into New Jersey tax code law, and it's like a certain amount of your property, if there are human remains on it, you can get a write-off for it being a cemetery.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, look, he will he will not spare any expense. Am I doing a double negative there? Meaning he won't throw any money at his ex-wife. Please, just dump her in the shallow grave at the off of hole 9. That's all we can do.
It's a whore in one. That's what I think to call it. Workers at Trader Joe's have formed the company's first union in Massachusetts, proving you can only make people wear Hawaiian shirts for so long before they will threaten to guillotine the CEO. And in a video, Will Smith apologized to Chris Rock, but the comedian is not ready to talk until his tour is over and the Netflix specials are taped. Milk that shit, Chris. And don't call it a comeback, but Joe Biden has COVID again. Doctors are calling it a rebound case, proving that even his immune system is in recession. For everything else, this is the week where. Okay, so this is the week where Joe Manchin realized he still wants to keep one mirror in his home, just one, and he's agreed to come to the table and support other Democrats for the first time in what is being called the Inflation Reduction Act. So it is a $369 billion package that addresses climate change, healthcare, inflation, and taxes, and it's to be spent over the next 10 years. It is a far cry from that $1.7 trillion that was supposed to be the Build Back Better bill, but it's got some aspects of it, and many are asking for the perfect not to be the enemy of the meh. It does promise to reduce carbon emissions by 40% by 2030, which is not, I think it was 50% by 2030. So it's like, take that 10% here, 10% there. $60 billion pledged for environmental justice programs, investments in sustainable agriculture, billions of dollars for renewables. It lets Medicare negotiate prescription drug prices, but that only takes effect in 2026, and it begins with only 10 drugs.
Not insulin either, which is like the most egregious case.
It's insane. Right, exactly. Because, of course, Manchin and his family making money off of the insulin market. And it would cap out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors at $2,000 a year. So, I mean, I guess still seems like a lot of money, but okay. They're going to pay for it by a 15% minimum tax on corporations with profits over $1 billion, closing a capital gains carried interest loophole, increasing funding for the IRS so it can up enforcement and actually go after rich people who avoid taxes for once. And it's got mixed reviews, y'all, in terms of, is it going to pass? Is it all that good? I want to show a little bit of maybe will or will not pass. Kirsten Sinema, of course, has not weighed in at all.
Right.
But what it needs to pass is moderate support. And of course, Democrats only have a slim majority. And after the recess, the party will have a margin of only 3 votes in the House, which is not good. Progressives have broadly sounded bullish on the bill, even though it's much narrower than what Democrats had originally hoped to pass. Pramila Jayapal saying, if we can get it done, and I believe we can, there's a real deal here. But the last uncertainty plaguing the bill is simple logistics, because the Senate is set to skip town on August 5th for lawmakers' annual summer recess. That leaves just a week for Democrats to pass the bill before they head out. It's not a lot of time, and it's further complicated by a recent surge in COVID-19 cases in Congress, which has meant members can't be at the Capitol in person to cast their votes. Are we not voting by Zoom at this point?
I do not know why that's not the case.
You can I bet you can filibuster by Zoom in the Senate, but you're like, no, you can't vote by Zoom.
You can filibuster by not doing anything at all. You just there used to be a talking filibuster. Now it's just a amorphous entity.
Exactly. You don't even have to log into Zoom. You do not even have to blur out your background, bro.
Yeah, you just need to fart and sit on your ass and you filibustered.
Yeah. So this is what this bill is. I want to ask your opinions. I did look to Bill McKibben, who has been praising this bill and kind of saying, Bill McKibben, obviously notorious climate activist, a journalist, writer, and he feels good about it. But he does say it is no unmitigated victory. It's larded with presents for the fossil fuel industry in return for gifts they've lavished on Manchin. It may come with real defeats. The fear is that when all the details are revealed, Biden will have committed himself to backing absurd projects like the MVP pipeline. So yet another pipeline. But even those defeats kind of make the case, because people fought so hard to oppose such projects, the tide eventually became too much for Manchin to bear. He basically, and he goes on and he says that essentially Manchin tanking that any kind of climate progress, that had ripple effects. And he eventually felt some amount of pressure and decided to come to the table because of this. I wanted this last thing. And he says basically, everyone who brought this fight to the whole new terrain, the scientists who protested, the policy wonks who wonked, the people whose particular fights have been sacrificed by the terms of the deal, them in particular, if Manchin had to deal because a pipeline he wanted was going down in flames, well, the people who made that possible are heroes. So, and this is what I saw from Sunrise Movement as well, which was essentially, look, if we pass a robust version of this bill, it could be really good. McKibben saying it could be good. There might be some poison pills. But for the most part, let's start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to take anything at this point, given the situation that Manchin has put the Democrats in and Sinema to, I think, a even larger extent to a degree, because, well, yeah, he's at the head of the climate committee, as he has personal investments in coal. She is really she's acting as a Lieberman type figure in terms of being the person who is standing in the way of any legislation being passed in favor of Wall Street and pharmaceutical companies, where Manchin's constituency is much clearer in terms of just coal, oil, and gas. That's his thing. And you can also understand what his incentives are, which it's harder to understand hers. His approval rating goes up when he tanks Biden's legislation, and now he eventually has been broken, and he had this agreement with Schumer, which was an oddly successful piece of maneuvering. The first time I've seen Schumer outsmart not Joe Manchin, I should say, McConnell.
Right.
Was that, I mean, you could argue it was at the start of 2021 when they passed that larger COVID relief bill, which was also a success. That was also the time when they should have rammed Build Back Better through to a degree, but they decided they need to bring Republicans into the process, and here we are. But Manchin played it well for his purposes. He cut it down to 1/9 of what it was initially supposed to be, and he got pro oil and gas amendments including an emphasis on carbon capture technology, which most serious climate activists essentially say is just a way to keep pumping carbon into the air, and then you capture it back. And there's an
Plant a tree.
Yeah, there's an overstatement about if that technology is even actually usable. For the most part, it's perceived as a fantasy put forth by the oil and gas industry to that degree. So cinemas still could stand in the way because this bill contains a carried interest loophole closure. I believe that is goes into effect, I think, in 3 to 5 years in terms of where they push the taxation. This is off the top of my head, so I don't remember. But most private equity merger deals are like 5 to 7 years, so it gets around it. She could potentially support it while still, sticking up for the Wall Street people, as she's want to do. So there is
because the finger trap works like Manchin's against any new spending, and she's against any new taxes.
Right.
So they kind of like have, they have
us
right. They have us in that bind. I've been talking about that for a little bit. And I mean, right. We'll see. I guess my thing is like, even if this does pass, the other thing that Manchin stipulates that we know is nowhere in this bill is anything punitive for the fossil fuel industry. Anything punitive, right? It's like, we will work hard to create renewables, but that might also, who knows, that might also be in the form of a massive handout to like BP or like the fossil fuel industry itself for their renewable programs, like, and the fact that, and it's kind of like everything we're doing, we kind of are like, again, eating our own tails, sort of like are chasing, or like trying to rearrange the decks on the Titanic. And I feel that with, this whole like the CHIPS bill that's supposed to be amazing, but actually isn't. This climate bill that you're like, I guess it's better than nothing. But if you don't have a framework for actually reining in the fossil fuel industry, then you're pretty much just doing nothing. If you're not stopping drilling on federal lands, which is this bill does not do, if you're not putting moratoriums on fracking wells, etc., we're still going down this horrible slippery slope that we all know we've been going on. Bill McKibben used to say, I mean, he still does, you have to treat the fossil fuel industry like enemy number one, like they're an enemy of the people. So the fact that he's like, look, this is better than nothing, and it was hard work. I don't know. I don't know what that's.
I want it to pass, but again, the reality is that we don't know if that's going to happen because of cinema, and this also has to get sent to the House. And Josh Gottheimer is on his like freaking crusade to reinstate the SALT deduction, which is a tax break for the wealthiest in New Jersey and New York suburbs. It largely affects the top 10%, and it's a way for them to basically deduct certain taxes because these are high areas outside of Manhattan that have, a lot of wealthy people and very high taxes. So,
and lots of ex-wives buried in golf courses.
Oh, yes. You forget, Francesca, that I grew up in New Jersey, and I know that golf course. So next time I drive by, I will, salute the ghost of Ivana. And I'm so sorry that she had to be buried in mud and just her body just tossed in there because he cheaped out on the coffin. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but
you know that for a fact though. Like I'm a bet. If there was a nice coffin, this is the same thing with Trump's dick. I'm sorry. This is a bit that I have, but I'm like, we would see that coffin if it was like marble.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't, just like if Trump didn't have a mangled, disgusting fucking worm of a penis, like he would have leaked this a long time ago.
Yeah, he would have. I mean, he doesn't leave a lot to the imagination, so.
Oh man. Well, look. Also, just a shout out to the protesters in Schumer's office who were congressional staffers, 6 of whom got arrested, basically around this issue, demanding that Schumer do something on climate. And it looks like, he got at least Manchin to the table. We'll see how the other side of the finger trap goes and, what she wants. If she's like, we need a sleeveless day in the Senate. And you're like, nobody wants to see Mitch McConnell's arms, but okay. Let's move on to our next story because this was also the week where, perhaps relatedly, Senate Republicans tanked a bill called the PACT Act that would have helped veterans get better health care for their exposure to toxic burn pits and other disgusting Pentagon concoctions like Agent Orange. A reported 86% of veterans have been exposed to burn pits or other toxins. And the VA has denied approximately 70% of veteran burn pit claims since 9/11. Again, also exposure to toxins at the Ground Zero site was part of this. The thing is that this bill actually passed, like the PACT Act passed in July 16th, just a few weeks, like 2 weeks ago. It passed 84-14. It was sent to the House, and then for some reason, there was a small amendment that Republicans say and claim completely changed the whole thing, created a slush fund. And so 25 senators, Republican senators, changed their vote. And here they are voting against giving greater health care to veterans.
Mr. Dance, no.
So that was a very excited fist bump between Ted Cruz and could you make out who that was?
I couldn't. I just saw Ted Cruz highlighted there. Who else was it?
Right. So it was, I don't know, but Senate Republicans basically fist bumping one another on preventing this bill from passing, which we just talked about the I can't even remember, but the Inflation Reduction Act / climate bill,
yes,
which was, had been released just hours before this bill came down for a vote. It feels like Senate Republicans were butthurt about the fact that Joe Manchin was actually agreeing to do something and was turning their back on them. And they were like, okay, we'll just randomly assign our anger into this bill that we were totally fine with 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. It seems clear that basically what happened when I said earlier in the show that Schumer, in a rare moment, I think one of his first or second ever instances of outmaneuvering McConnell, was that, and of course it's for legislation that Schumer really wanted and not like Medicare for all or something big or single payer healthcare or Green New Deal, whatever. But Schumer has been trying to get this Chinese competitive bill on semiconductors and other industries. He's been on this for years at this point, and it was finally his chance to strike. And so he was able to get over 10 Republicans on board with this bill. The only Democrat that voted against it was Bernie Sanders, by the way, because he said this is public taxpayer money invested in this bill, and we have no guarantees on if it's coming back for us. And he's absolutely right. But regardless, it passed over the filibuster threshold. And so the reconciliation process, which is only reserved for budgetary bills, and you only need 50 votes plus the tiebreakers of Kamala Harris to get it over the threshold. That route, which is you only have a finite number of them per year because of the stupid filibuster, that was preserved for this agreement that Manchin and Schumer had agreed to behind the scenes, but no one knew about it. So Schumer waited for chips to pass the Chinese competitive bill, the semiconductor bill, to pass the Senate, having let no one know that this agreement was in place. And as soon as it passed that afternoon, what do you know? Schumer and Manchin had an agreement all the time. Now, I don't love the substance of the legislation to the degree that Schumer probably does.
Right.
It is notable that it was a rare piece of outmaneuvering of McConnell, and Republicans got vindictive. And so they shot down this burn pit legislation to help veterans with their health care after they started an illegal war in Iraq and a long occupation in Afghanistan, which caused these things. And then they say, well, we love soldiers, but we don't love veterans so much. So screw you and your health care, and we're not going to help you in any way.
Right.
And that's the kind of games that Republicans play, and I hope that's clarifying for people.
Incredibly. And I have to play a little bit of Jon Stewart. Veterans are now, in fact, because he's been at the forefront of this fight, veterans are now sleeping on the steps of the Capitol building. And Chuck Schumer says he's going to bring the vote back. He's going to bring the act back for another vote, on Monday night. So we'll see. This may have already passed by the time you guys are listening to it, and I fucking hope it does. But you hear what Emma's explaining was just this like incredible pettiness because of Republicans passing the CHIPS Act, and then being like, well, I don't want to agree with Democrats twice. And now there's another thing that's coming down the pike. So you're right. And this is Jon Stewart calling the Senate and specifically Senate Republicans on their bullshit. And I just think this is so brilliant. And I wish Stewart could coach Schumer.
Yes, they need some messaging help. Yeah.
Leaning over his glasses and doing that. Well, I've said, just take a few cues.
So ain't this a bitch?
Yeah. Yep.
Ain't this a bitch?
Yep.
America's heroes who fought in our wars outside sweating their asses off with oxygen, battling all kinds of ailments, while these motherfuckers sit in the air conditioning, walled off from any of it. They don't have to hear it. They don't have to see it. They don't have to understand that these are human beings. Do you get it yet? Do we see that these aren't heroes? These are men and women, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers that we just let stand outside in the heat when they can't breathe. I'm going to read you something. This is beautiful. I'm going to read you something beautiful. You know what? I said a curse word and I'm sorry about that. That was my fault. Let me say something beautiful. This is a tweet from Senator Rick Scott of Florida from yesterday. It's beautiful. And I'm sorry about the cursing. And let me say something beautiful to make it up to you. I was honored to join the USO today and make care packages for our brave military members in gratitude of their sacrifice and service to our nation. And there's a beautiful picture. I wish you could see it. He's standing with a little package. Did you get the package? I think it has M&Ms in it and some cookies. Didn't get it. And some moist towelettes. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know what to say. I've been coming down here 10, 15 years. I'm used to the hypocrisy. Christina Keene will tell you from VFW. She sat in an office with Mitch McConnell and a war veteran from Kentucky, and he looked that man in the eyes and he said, we'll get it done. And he lied to him. Because Mitch McConnell yesterday flipped. I'm used to the lies. I'm used to the hypocrisy. Senator Pat Toomey won't take a meeting with the veterans groups. Sends out his chief of staff. I'm used to the cowardice. I've been here a long time. Senate's where accountability goes to die. These people don't care. They're never losing their jobs. They're never losing their health care. Pat Toomey didn't lose his job. He's walking away. God knows what kind of pot of gold he's stepping into to lobby this government to shit on more people. I'm used to all of it, but I am not used to the cruelty. They passed it. June 16th, they passed the PACT Act. 84-14. You don't even see those scores in the Senate anymore. They passed it. Every one of these individuals that has been fighting for years, standing on the shoulders of Vietnam veterans who have been fighting for years, standing on the shoulders of Persian Gulf War veterans fighting for years, Desert Storm veterans, to just get the health care and benefits that they earned from their service. And I don't care if they were fighting for our freedom. I don't care if they were fighting for the flag. I don't care if they were fighting because they wanted to get out of a drug treatment center or it was jail or the army. I don't give a shit. They lived up to their oath. And yesterday, they spit on it.
Okay, so there he is. And there's a little bit more I want to play, but I did want to correct myself and say it was June 16th, not July 16th. And this is a different bill than I mentioned 9/11 first responders. He's also been fighting on their behalf as well. But it's a different bill, obviously. This is specifically, veterans of foreign wars. It's so brilliant, him breaking this down, and this is how he ends this incredible 10-minute speech.
This isn't a slush fund. You know what's a slush fund? The OCO, the Overseas Contingency Operations Fund, $60 billion, $70 billion every year on top of $500 billion, $600 billion, $700 billion of a defense budget. That's a slush fund, unaccountable, no guardrails. Did Pat Toomey stand up and say, this is irresponsible, the guardrails? No, not one of them did. They vote for it year after year after year. You don't support the troops, you support the war machine. And now they say, well, this will get done maybe in the after we get back from our summer recess, maybe during the lame duck, because they're on Senate time. Do you understand? You live around here. Senate time is ridiculous. These motherfuckers live to 200. They're tortoises. They live forever, and they never lose their jobs, and they never lose their benefits, and they never lose all those things. Well, they're not on Senate time. They're on human time, cancer time. Don't you have families? Don't you have people who are deciding how to live their last moments? I know some of them. They've been down here advocating with us. They spent their remaining time advocating so that other soldiers didn't have to face the indignities and the depravity and the desperation that they faced. And none of them will hear it. And none of them care. This is an embarrassment to the Senate, to the country, to the founders, and all that they profess to hold dear. And if this is America first, then America is fucked.
I just, why can't we have that clarity more often?
Oh yeah. Well, they work with Republicans. They want things to be nice at the lunch counter.
Yeah, exactly. On the little sort of the little trolley and the tram that takes them around to different places. I've been on that thing. It's small. It's got to be awkward if you guys are disagreeing and you're calling each other out for your bullshit. I think the point, and this is a broader discussion, but the point about Republican so-called isolationism and the fact that a lot of these MAGA fools were like, yeah, the Iraq War was dumb, and none of them are resuscitating Bush. Only mainstream media and centrists love to resuscitate Bush, and here John is calling them out on this idea that number one, they're always against government spending unless it is for war. And the whole facade of oh no, we don't believe in just endless money for endless wars, and why don't we put America first, and no. That's all bullshit, because they approve these insane Pentagon budgets every single goddamn year, defense spending budgets, and nobody calls them out on it. And yet when it comes to veterans, which again, they will prop up like puppets and use as pawns, here they can throw them under the bus whenever they want. So it's so brilliant. But the fact is, Democrats they're not anti big defense budget spending enough to have the freedom to say things like that and criticize that and actually pick up a mantle that's been left for them by an 8 years of a fucking horrible, George W. Bush administration, 2+ wars. It's right there. And instead it's been picked up by Trump and MAGA being we should have taken all the oil. It's just, it's such a misstep. You know what I mean? And
yeah. No, I mean, and to add to your point, Nancy Pelosi, she does this once a season, right? She sees oh, it's fall now. It's time for me to say publicly that we need a strong Republican Party. I got my 4 quotes publicly in this year about that, but should I do that 2 or 3 more times just to be safe? So we can have 6 quotes on the record per year. I mean, it undercuts your message when that's essentially their only way for them to combat Republicans is to tie them to Trump, because Republicans created Trump. And if you wanted to have a more holistic message, branding Republicans as bad and toxic would allow you to effectively combat this, because this was the Bush administration and this is their legacy. And instead of him handing Michelle Obama candy, you could be reminding people of that. but
Yes.
leadership doesn't understand how to even do that because they're stuck in the Reagan era.
Pelosi was by his side the whole goddamn time. I mean, that's the other thing. Not much she could have done, but anyway, I really appreciate this kind of clarity. Jon Stewart goes on to Fox News. He's talking to anyone who'll talk. Calling out Pat Toomey is brilliant, being like, they won't even take a fucking meeting. Now, I would be very surprised, Emma. I don't know. We it's going to happen tomorrow night. I'd be very surprised if they still vote no on this. Republicans claiming that this is, there's too much pork on it, that theirs is a slush fund and blah, blah. But the outrage, like that video we just played, I mean, it's got millions of views. Like I said, Stewart's going on, any right-wing outlet that will have him on, he's talking to them. Calling them out. So I think they will vote on it. Like, I think this will actually pass and they'll, but we'll see.
I think so too. But honestly, if Democrats had any political sense, they would at least go on the airwaves and hammer Republicans about it before that happened.
100%. All right. And with that, we got to bring in, for the sitch, she is a member of the Starbucks Workers United and was part of the fight to unionize the first Starbucks in the country in Buffalo, New York in 2021. Please welcome Jaz Brisack.
Hi, it's so great to be here with y'all.
Oh my God, so good to have you here. I think you know Emma.
Yes, it's so nice to meet you.
You as well.
And awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
They are scared. The Schultzy big scared right now. I want to talk to you about all the backlash, but first, can you just for a rundown, folks don't know, 316 stores have filed to unionize. 316 Starbucks have filed to unionize in 36 states. Dozens of elections are underway. Even though Starbucks has an aggressive anti-union campaign and is like, we give you Spotify. Here's free Spotify. That's just something I saw at a Starbucks, and I was like, I can't believe that's a perk.
That's what they say is the top thing that Starbucks partners value as a benefit is the free Spotify. And, free Spotify doesn't actually put groceries in your fridge, but yeah.
But like you can like rock out while you're, eating ramen again. For the third night in a row. And so far 207 Starbucks stores in 33 states have actually won those elections. So that's good odds. Just 44 stores have lost an election. And you were in Buffalo, patient zero of this movement. And I want to ask, like, how was this a different kind of union drive? How was this worker led versus, I think, what we've often seen and in a sector that I think had been largely forgotten by mainstream union movements?
So I want to say, I don't think that it was fundamentally that different from a lot of other union campaigns. I do think that it got a lot of notoriety very quickly because both of, it was Starbucks. It was something that, so many people across the whole country are going to every day where, most people are familiar with Starbucks baristas. We're very visible, green apron is kind of synonymous with like going to a coffee shop. And also because, our corporation decided that instead of doing the smart thing and, signing the fair election principles and saying like, okay, we might not have liked this, but we're a progressive kind of company. Like, tell us what you want. Let's talk. Howard Schultz, the CEO, decided to do things like come to Buffalo to give us speeches about how the Holocaust meant that we shouldn't unionize, where he compared Starbucks benefits to Holocaust prisoners sharing their blankets and tried to draw this whole analogy and actually, turned people who had been more on the fence towards like, okay, if this dude is talking about the Holocaust, maybe I'm going to vote yes.
I can't even tell you, I got to say, how many times we played that clip on the Majority Report, because it really was, I've never seen such a level of like lacking self-awareness. And that was everyone else's reaction in the room as well, pretty much.
Howard had run for president before and, gotten some Twitter backlash. But his defense of that anecdote was that he had done it, he'd said it before. And in fact, the title of chapter 20 of his book that he wrote while running for president is Share Your Blanket, where he talks about, going to Appalachia with JD Vance of all people, and
Oh,
like learning about, the bootstrap mentality and how, Starbucks could open stores and help rescue people, etc. So a deep
So
legacy
this is
there.
an active. I'm sorry. I we'll insert this in post, but this is an active comparison of baristas and workers in his stores to people suffering under Nazism and like in what ghettos and work camps during the Holocaust, and being like,
I mean, his
they
direct-
shared. Why can't you share?
Exactly.
Oh no, we lost Jazz. It was too
oh my
real.
gosh. Right. It must have been the powers that be shutting their
Show
damn
me back. I love
shadow
that.
band.
I love when a CEO is that fucking tone deaf. It's almost endearing.
Yeah. You're like, oh, you're just a child. So you're just a rich baby. You're boss baby. And you might be the boss, but you're still a baby. Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
All good.
No worries. It's the name of the day. But yeah, so that actually, right, a lot of these anti-union efforts only further galvanize workers to understand that, hey, maybe we do want to vote yes on this.
Exactly. I mean, I think, Howard Schultz was kind of a big example of that, because, the man has $4.8 billion, could buy a lot of blankets. He was also, on the short list to be Hillary Clinton's Secretary of Labor had she won in 2016. And Melody Hobson, who's the chair of the Starbucks board of directors, is making her fortune from union pension funds, which are a major investor in Ariel Investments, which is the company that she runs. And, she is like hosting dinner parties with Obama and Oprah. And, these people aren't paying a consequence for what they've done. Now, I think that could change. And I think that's how we win, is when people start, making it as socially unacceptable to union bust as to do all of the other, socially questionable things. Like when Starbucks had, racist managers kicking, Black customers out of stores. They shut down all the stores across the country for training on like how to avoid having that happen again. So they do actually know how to say, okay, we screwed up. We're going to close all our stores and say, we're not going to do that anymore. They can do that and say, Howard, you're not going to make Holocaust comparisons, or say that you're being assaulted by unions anymore. And also all these, other managers that have been slashing people's hours or writing them up for, wearing jeans that are too light, or writing in the daily records book with the wrong color pen. That's not acceptable behavior anymore, because it's been encouraged. And now they have to have an about face, and, the public's got to help us get them there.
Yeah, and I think I've seen you speak about, the visibility, as you're saying, of baristas, and the frequency with which people will go to their Starbucks. It was helpful. Whereas, a lot of workers are sort of like behind closed doors, not as, and it's ironically, considering how much the retail sector there's been a lack of union effort by a lot of, of mainstream unions, and it was seen as too difficult, too much turnover, whatever the rationale. The one thing that I think retail has going for it is that interface with customers, with people who are also just like them.
And to your point, just I know we've lost her, but I do think that there is and I'm forgetting exactly who said it, but a fetishization of union workers of the past, where, hey, you can't be in bad working conditions if you're working in a customer's Jazz is back. But I was just making this point that I think that sometimes people who are trying to union bust without saying they're union bust will make some sort of distinction and say, well, service work is not like the coal mines. Like, it's not as difficult as getting black lung, and hey, there are still coal miners out there who also deserve union protections as well. But I digress.
Warrior Met strikers got to win too.
100%.
Yes.
But they will use that as a way to downplay union efforts in places like Starbucks or Trader Joe's. And the reality is that no, this is the economy that we created when we offshored all of those other kinds of jobs due to lateral trade deals. And we essentially have created a service economy, and these are the jobs. So then you can't use that as an excuse to then say, well, we won't give you the same protections as the jobs that we shipped elsewhere.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that's something too that isn't unique to this industry. That's what we're seeing today. But when, our union was actually, founded by garment workers who were told the same things about the kind of work they were doing. It was women's work. It wasn't skilled work. It was piece rate. It was little independent sweatshops that were all conspiring with each other, obviously, to keep conditions bad and wages low. But, it was this informal economy. And they were told the same things. And, they founded our union and achieved 100% union density in this industry that had been considered unorganizable. And now 100 years later, I'd like to think that we're carrying on that legacy because this came.
Oh, dang.
I was like, that's like a really good bite. Maybe I'll start the podcast with that bite. And then she just bounced. I do want to point out a couple things happened this week. We just to move on to how Starbucks is responding to this, and I'm sure Jazz will be here and talk about it. They're closing stores. So now, and this is according to In These Times, they are, by the end of the month, the coffee chain said it's going to close 6 stores in Seattle and Los Angeles, 2 in Portland, Oregon, as well as locations in DC and Philly. On Wednesday, Seattle workers from Starbucks Workers United, the union that's been organizing stores across the country, filed an unfair labor practice charge, arguing the closures amount to retaliation and illegal coercion against union activity. Of the 16 stores set for closure, 2 locations in Seattle have successfully unionized, and 1 store in Portland is set for a union vote in August. So is there a correlation there, Janice?
Absolutely. I mean, even some of the stores that didn't have, public campaigns yet, like the one in Union Station in Washington, D.C., had already started having those organizing conversations. The first store that Starbucks, closed in a high-profile situation was the Ithaca College Avenue store, which they closed a few days after the workers there went on strike over a health and safety issue that they'd been talking about for 5 years. So the subtext here is, if you complain or if you say that you're unsafe, then, we're going to shut your store down. And if you have organizing conversations and try to unite with your coworkers to do something about this, then we're going to close your store down. So, I mean, that's the latest in the scorched earth tactics. Tomorrow, Starbucks is rolling out, this whole slew of benefits that they originally announced, thinking that they could actually break the momentum of our union votes in Buffalo. And now they're saying, since you voted to unionize, we're not going to give these to you because now you're union and we have to wait until you have a collective bargaining agreement. And we've said, whoa, we waive our right to bargain about these. If they're really improvements, like, go ahead, give them to us. We're not going to stand in your way. And they're like, nope, not doing that. And it's, very obvious why.
So something you didn't, a benefit they're basically just dangling. And does that have to do also with, like, I know Starbucks is speaking out about, like, abortion rights and abortion access, trans healthcare benefits. Is this something they're just sort of jumping onto the corporate bandwagon, whatever one might think of that bandwagon, whether it's virtuous or not, and they're like, oh, JK, maybe we won't give you those benefits because I guess we have to wait for your contract.
No, exactly. Like in union stores, they've been, or in unionizing stores, as people are trying to decide if they're, gonna vote yes, as managers and everybody are telling them, everything's going to be different if you unionize. You don't know what's going to happen if you unionize. You could lose your benefits. You could lose your health care. We can't guarantee that you're going to have all these things. And, they've been retaliating against unionizing stores by slashing hours. They've actually cut hours massively across the country. And in order to be eligible for benefits, including healthcare, including, abortion reimbursements and gender affirming care, you have to be working 20 hours a week. And because they've cut so many partners who were, just at that threshold, now people were just audited by the company and, kicked out of their healthcare, kicked out of the ASU tuition reimbursement program. So it's a very tiered and multifaceted way of union busting,
Yeah.
because you have the overt threats, and then you have the more direct, we're just taking all of this away because you're not meeting standards because we've started
And
cutting your hours.
is SW is a union filing with the NLRB around that, or filing
They
complaints?
filed hundreds of charges across the country. I mean, I wish the labor board moved faster because,
Yeah.
we're in an unfair labor practice trial in Buffalo right now, where the labor board is suing Starbucks for over 200 violations of federal labor law, and, hopefully going to reinstate fired workers, reopen a store that Starbucks closed as part of their union busting effort. Order the union into the Camp Road store, where the union busting was so intense that workers were in 6-on-1 captive audience anti-union meetings, and having 6 or 7 managers stationed in their store telling people to vote no. But that process takes so long that it's going to be well over a year of Starbucks being allowed to do whatever they want before we'd even potentially start seeing some accountability.
How about yourself? How has it been in Buffalo? What are some of the changes? What are the wins? But then what are what's been going on in terms of those busing tactics or some of the threats?
I mean, it's designed to wear us down. I'm in a standoff with Starbucks over my availability, where they're trying to get me to quit, and I'm like, I want to work at Starbucks. You just can't keep messing with my availability. But I think it's designed as psychological warfare. Everything that they've been doing from day one was psychological warfare. And it's nothing new. Kind of going back to the other question about is this a different kind of campaign? This is what companies do. Starbucks is just able to do it on such a massive scale because they had, an army of 150 managers and corporate execs that they could fly into Buffalo. They have the resources to hire, at least 50 Littler Mendelsohn union busting attorneys. They can really keep debuting these things on a huge scale. But this was always part of a industry project because, in Buffalo, we'd organized a local coffee shop previously, and that one was called Spot Coffee. I actually kind of ended up being the lead organizer for that campaign by accident because I was the one that could stay in Buffalo and grab picket signs when workers were fired in retaliation for union organizing. And the lesson of that campaign was, a company that started out saying, turn over the names and we're going to fire anybody who attended this union meeting. Very quickly, once the community was like, Buffalo's a union town, we're not going to go to a place that, is firing workers for organizing. We're going to demand that they respect the right to organize and sign the fair election principles. Within about 3 weeks, Spot Coffee had folded and, decided that now they were going to live with the union and actually, decided that it was both great ethically and as a business model to be a social justice company. So I think there's hope, but it's going to take a lot of accountability.
If we can replace all these closing Starbucks with other coffee shops that have union jobs. I mean, it's so funny because I came up during a time when it was politically, when you're Starbucks on every fucking corner and you're like, what's going to stop this monster from spreading? And you're like, oh, a union drive of workers from the inside, and that's not a good thing. Obviously, I'm not saying yay, fewer jobs, but you're here's this monstrosity that, they're not scared. What they're actually scared of is just Schulte taking a little bit of a pay cut, right? That's all it is. It's the CEO taking a pay cut.
I think it's also just power. This is about Howard Schultz's ego at the end of the day, because it's not about money. He's losing money union busting. And the labor board, isn't moving as quickly as would be helpful, but the labor board's going to order all these stores that Starbucks is closing to reopen. So they're not really getting away with it. I think it's just more delay tactics before Starbucks really realizes, the only way forward for them. And the only way for them to keep their reputation as a company that's, different or progressive is to actually work with us and sign a contract.
I wanted to give Emma a chance to jump in, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, sure. I just didn't know what the timing was for you, Fran. But I guess I am curious too about the reports and your reaction to when there was that proposal to give pay increases for workers that were non-unionized. Now I know that you guys filed with the NLRB because that's such a clear union busting tactic that of course you had to. But what came of that? I mean, what was your reaction, and what is the status of that right now?
So the litigation is still ongoing because, we filed those, the labor board's investigating, et cetera. The actual wage increases are supposed to go into effect starting tomorrow. So those are rolling out. A lot of people at non-union stores have been reporting that, the increases are actually significantly less than they were promised, which kind of underscores why we needed a union in the first
Right.
place, because you can't count on corporate to actually follow through. But I mean, the back pay for union partners is going to be significant, obviously, once the labor board says you can't actually do that, especially when, the union's been saying, like, we're not putting any obstacles in your way. Like, go ahead and give us these benefits. We're not standing between us and the benefits.
Yeah, it might make negotiation a little bit smoother, but you're still gonna have to fucking negotiate. I mean, and here's the progressive corporation we're talking about. This is from this week. I'm sure, Jazz, you saw this. Lilette on Twitter. That time my boss asked me if I could change the day I put my dog to sleep for Starbucks. This is a back and forth, I believe, with their manager. Sorry, I'm trying to find coverage for my Sunday shift. I have to put down my dog Saturday night and it will be an absolute mess. She's my best friend. Just letting you know ahead of time. I'm going to text some people and see if they can help out. Manager, I'm really going to need you to find coverage. I understand it's a tough situation, but you have plenty of notice. So it's not going to be approved if you don't come in. Is there a way you could do it on a night where you don't work the next day? I'll do my best, but I'm sorry it's inconvenient. It's a family dog and she's very sick, and this is what my family's decided to do. I can't reschedule when I put my dog down for Starbucks. Goes on. This is also my official 2 weeks. I've worked for this company for 2.5 years, and I appreciate what it's done for me, but I'm ready to move on. I mean, we just lost Jazz again, but 2.5 years at Starbucks, and they can't fucking allow you, they can't deal with the fact that you're giving them a short notice for like your dog dying. You're having to put your dog down. Like, just, that's straight evil shit, Jazz.
Oh, absolutely. And sadly, I mean, that's not uncommon. I think the interesting thing is how wide the range of reasons that people have been unionizing is, because my store was probably one of the most functioning Starbucks in the country when we started, and corporate descended on our store and was like, okay, we got to find a problem, because this can't be, workers wanting a voice or wanting accountability. It has to be because there's a carpet in the back room, or because somebody called out at lunchtime, or they would go down and try to basically corner people into giving them a reason that we were unionizing. But at the same time, other stores had managers getting away with firing 3 trans partners in 2 months because they were transphobic management, and nothing had been done about that until the union started. And then Starbucks was like, okay, maybe we can prevent the union if we start giving people what they want. But the fact that all of these things had been going unchecked is not surprising, but pretty disappointing.
No. Well, Jazz, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry about the tech difficulties. Please, how can we support your work?
So we have a no contract, no coffee pledge. We haven't declared a boycott yet. We still want customers coming in and ordering the union strong drinks, and cheering on unionizing partners and folks who've already unionized and are still dealing with the ongoing union busting. But we are collecting information from supporters so that we can keep people up to date, as we try to keep putting more pressure on this company to actually do the right thing.
Okay, sweet.
So all of that info is on SB Workers United, Instagram and Twitter, etc.
Hell yeah. SB Workers United, everyone get with it, follow them. And when they say boycott, you better drop your half calf.
Do it.
Yeah, lattes.
But don't do it yet.
Not yet.
I kind of am already involuntarily, and by involuntarily, like just I give it a little bit of a side eye as I walk by and on my way to work. Any Starbucks I see.
We were just NATO and I were talking the other day about how we were all anti-Starbucks, anti-globalization, rah, fuck neoliberalism, and then after the march ends, you have to pee, and you're like, fuck, and you go to the Starbucks. And
well, that's the issue, is that we have no public spaces in this country anymore.
Right.
Starbucks have to fill that void.
Not to worry, Howard Schultz is saying that his new response to mental health is, even as Starbucks managers are writing partners up for wearing suicide awareness pins to work, Howard's closing our public bathrooms to deal with mental health. So, that's not going to be a thing for that much longer. Although,
because you know what cures mental illness is when people who are homeless don't have a place to use the bathroom.
Yeah. When you gotta pee, it's like you gotta pee so bad you don't have time to be homeless or mentally ill. So
right. What's really bad for mental illness is union busting. So I think maybe we should just tell Starbucks about that.
There you go.
Absolutely. All right, Jazz. Thank you so much. Take very good care and best of luck with everything. Emma, we got one more segment and then I'll let you get the hell out of here.
Sure.
I know we've run long. I may have to do the final bonus without you. I'm so sad. It makes me sad, but that's okay. We have one more segment. It'll be fun because, of course, there's a new party in town, guys. You know about it, but maybe you did. New centrist party just dropped. It's called the Forward Party. You know how we needed a new centrist party? It is co-chaired by Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang and former Republican New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman. It's basically a combo of three lesser centrist entities that are sort of transforming, Captain Planeting or whatever they are doing. Renew America movement, created by former Republicans. The Serve America movement, Democrats and Republicans and independents, led by David Jolly of Florida. And then Yang's Forward Party. And Yang, I guess, won out. So we're asking, what's their platform? What are some of the planks in their new platform form? This is forward to where? Okay, so if you guys need some help, and Emma, if you want some help sort of thinking through what would you, if you're hired as a consultant for the Forward Party, what do you think the first few things you guys are, what is on the docket here? What's your policy? What proposals? Their slogan, one of their sort of what they want to do this is according to their website, they want to reinvigorate a fair, flourishing economy and open society.
That's
where everyone,
specific.
Yeah, flourish, where everyone can live a good life and is safe in the place where we learn, work, and live. It sounds I know what it actually is. I know it's a libertarian nightmare solution to everything we have, but it just sounds like a more mealy-mouthed version of the Democratic Party. Live a good life and is safe. It feels like it's ending gun violence, safe,
we're against bad things and for good things. We want your life to be good. Time for me to donate.
yeah, exactly. So I have a few. I think that some of the policy proposals will be, in order to combat climate change, Airbnb will be given federal grants to build tiny homes in trees.
Hobbit homes. They should be underground too. That was what Ted Cruz said Obama was going to do, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember that.
Or maybe it wasn't Ted Cruz. It was some Republican that said Obama was going to force us all.
We're going to live in Hobbit homes.
And I'm honestly, that sounds lovely because that community is beautiful and everyone should want to be a part of the Shire. But regardless, yeah, it is hilarious. First of all, if you guys haven't seen through Andrew Yang at this point as a uh, essentially a libertarian light, then I don't know what I can do for you, because his proposal for UBI in and of itself was sus, because I'm in favor of UBI as a supplement, right? As long as it's supplementary and it is not as a replacement for Medicare, for Social Security, for existing social programs that already need to be expanded. That was what his whole candidacy was frankly based on, which is like, wait, instead of this cash going towards people's health care, what if we gave it and put it into their pocket so it could go right back into the economy, and so that everyone
And
could
then we
benefit
can
from it?
blame them when they're sick and be like, oh my
Yeah.
God, you didn't save enough money for your pharmaceuticals. You didn't save enough money for that car accident that you knew you were going to get into.
Exactly, right? Personal responsibility. So this is the natural progression of it. And he's just such a grifter, and I'm still shocked at the branding of this party, which he still is sticking with forward. Dude, you're openly advertising it as a centrist party, which is like, you have half of the Democratic Party, if not more, already on board with this platform. But call it inertia, call it status quo. That's the reality of what it is.
Just to think that like there were enough centrists to even form a new party around is like bonkers. Like, say what you will about the People's Party and sort of the Jimmy Dore nut jobs, at least there's like a lot of people who are fucking disaffected from the Democratic Party to the left of it. Like at least there's that's more strategic. I'm unclear who all these centrists are. Okay, I've got more policy proposals though. So I think they're going to incentivize public transit by only having buses and trains accept Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the way to go,
Yeah.
They're going to subsidize Ubers for those suffering a medical emergency and are currently bleeding right now. Those Uber rides will be free, and then ambulances will have to compete. And that's like,
but only free if you apply for a rebate.
Right. Oh, no. It's not up front.
Yeah.
If you meet the requirements and you bring, take photos or have the proper amount of ounces of blood you lost, though that Uber,
you got to meet that blood threshold. You have got to meet the blood threshold.
I mean, and then once the EMTs feel like there's competition from Uber, then they'll do, you know what I mean? Like they'll, of course, lower the prices for an ambulance ride. Because that's the way the free market works.
Affordable, accessible Uber ambulance rides. I mean, that is what America's built on.
Yeah. Honestly, have you seen anything that they've written or have come out with, and what do you think that they're gonna campaign
Well, I
on?
read that god awful, hellish op-ed in the Washington Post that they put out, and all it did was just straw man the left and say, we're not in favor of the right's extreme stance on banning abortion, but we're also not in favor of the left stance of late-term abortions and into the third trimester, which, guys, reality check. The only time that ever happens is when a woman is dying or the life of a mother is in jeopardy.
No.
That's an extreme position. No one... Name a politician in elected office who has said, I'm in favor of late-term abortion. I really want people to look it up. Try to find anybody, because that's not the case. But all of the Republicans are in favor of the position that they say is representative of the far right. All of them, except for a handful.
It's incredible to look at the landscape of politics today and be like, yeah, you know what the problem is? Is just there's not enough. Everyone's to still say we're so divided and that the left is just, all this defund the police, don't let me bleed out from a miscarriage talk, Yeah. It's just, you're so lost. And Andrew Yang, again, here's what I would say. His campaign, yes, he is Asian. However, it is the whitest guy Asian man campaign. If a fucking racist is running his campaign, an Asian dude with a hat that says math on it, come on now. I'm Chinese and that's offensive. That's straight. A white guy made that. I'm sorry. And then he comes. Andrew Yang's very good at op-eds. His op-eds are always like, you know what? Hey, Asian Americans, Be more American. That's how you'll stop being hate crimed.
I
Like,
know.
what were you wearing when you were hate crimed? Were there enough American flags on you?
I mean, you were asking for it if you weren't at least wearing an American flag pin.
Absolutely. Just like, oh God. I'm so glad he did so poorly trying to be mayor of, I mean, Eric Adams is not.
He's worse. But I almost
You think
would
so?
rather
Oh,
have.
God.
No, honestly, no. I think I would have. I rather would have had Eric Adams because he's.
Okay.
And that's saying a lot because I mean, I rank choice Yang and Adams. I think I didn't even put them on my ballot because I was so.
I would, yeah.
By them, but
No, I'd be way too scared. That's when everyone was like, because like we had ranked choice over in California, and they were like, "Do you even have to rank these people?" I'm like, "No, don't put them anywhere on your ballot." Like,
yeah.
Anywho, Emma Vigeland of the Majority Report. Check her out 5 days a week. Always holding down a Thursday by herself, crushing it with the commentary. I really enjoy. I really enjoy it. You're excellent. You're awesome, and I will get you for another bonus episode.
That's very kind. Yes, and we got to have you back on soon. Even though, what are you going to name your baby? No, I'm joking.
Emma, are you named after anarchist Emma Goldman, Emma?
I am named after my grandmother, Emma, but that would be cooler if I was named after Emma Goldman.
My
great grandmother. Sorry, I love my grandmother, but I didn't know my great grandmother, so that's cool. But like Emma Goldman, probably cooler.
My car is red, and I call her Red Emma because of Emma Goldman. So
gotcha.
Like, that's my Red Emma.
That's badass.
Yeah, hell yeah. Emma is a good name. But again, if I said that, people are like, oh great, oh, that's nice. I like it. And you're like, what do you want? A crystal? Like, anywho. Yes, have me back on. Have me back on. Otherwise, I'm gonna start a rumor that you guys are anti-pregnant people. And
that's fair.
It's gonna stick. Okay, I'm gonna be so well. And everybody, thank you for being here. Thanks for dealing with all the, when you have 3 amazing people in one stream, what's a little technical difficulty? Don't nobody care. I might have to do the bonus bish by myself, but you're going to want to hear it. Maybe I'll drag MacLeod in here and we'll talk about it. It's about the DCCC's strategy to support in heavy quotation marks Republican candidates. Is this a good strategy? Is it not a good strategy? I'll share what I think and how I think some people are getting a little bit wrong. But for now, y'all, we got some comments to get through. There are a lot of wonderful comments, and I appreciate y'all. Let's see, Angel Baby. Franny, you're such an icon. You're intelligent, articulate, charismatic, hilarious, and so much more. You're going to be a great mommy. Great mommy. Love all. Thank you, Angie Baby. That's really nice of you. And yet today I feel extra dumb. I don't know why. I think I've made a few mistakes, and you're having one of those days. I don't know what's happening with the stars and the planets right now. Let's see. I don't see no star comments, guys. I'm looking through your comments. Make Emma great again. Mike Boy Raps, I would call my party the cool guy having sex party. I'm glad I read that comment, Mike Boy. I'm very glad. That's a worthwhile comment. Cool guy having, but that's effectively what the Republicans are. They're like, our party is no fat chicks. I'm not a virgin party. Like they're leaning into that. Who's Joe Daddy on Twitch? They run so short-staffed to save money, they don't have any options. That's a strategy. They're talking about Starbucks. It's just incredible, like how bald-faced it is. Because as Jazz was saying, they're going to open up the franchises once they try and basically ice out all of the organizers in the different stores. I mean, they're going to open back up these stores. Arlo Bender Simon on YouTube. I walked with the workers on the picket line at one of the Starbucks. It's now being closed in Seattle. The fight goes on. Thank you, Arlo, for doing that and for sharing that. Like my folks, my dad lives up in Seattle, and I know he's going to be mad as hell if he tries to go to his Starbucks and they've closed because of fucking union busting. don't get between an Italian and his espresso. You know what I'm saying? Dan Bifano says, how does the center move forward? It's a juxtaposition. I think we had a joke and on a Newsbroke episode once where it was like, we don't have a left wing, or a right wing, we just have a center wing, just kind of like a rudder. Like it doesn't even move, but like if you have a center wing, you will fall out of the sky, my friend. That's how that works. There is no center wing. Charmed Chaos on Twitch, how Atlas shrugged of them. And the amazing Andrew on Twitch. I loved Andrew Yang at first. I support anyone named Andrew. And then he kept talking. Such a pity. Alex Samaras left. We want equal rights and protections for all. Right. We want to exterminate anyone not like us. Centrist. Compromise? Can we kill off some people? To pretend we have a balanced political climate right now it's like, where have you, bless your stupid fucking heart. Where have you been hiding this whole time? In what bag of money? In what pool of McDuck? That's not his name, but you know what I'm saying. Donald Duck pool of gold coins have you been hiding that you think that that's a political reality right now? Matthew Towers on YouTube. Hi, Francesca. I saw the Bitchuation Room in Brooklyn. It was a great show. Sam was great. Matt was great. Congratulations to you both. Keep up the great work. Everything's great, Matthew. I did get COVID shortly after that show, so I hope everyone else was fine. But I had a good time. It was a fuck ton of work, but I hope to do it again. And it was a really, really, really fun show. Tiffany Caban. Hello. What a dream. What a dream boat. Just nothing but dream boats. The whole thing. Dream boats. Dream boats only is the slogan for this show. You guys, thank you so much. And with that, can we get this right? Can we play that goddamn fart song? Hell yeah. I lost it. Okay. Thank you so much to the new patrons. Cameron, you upped your pledge to $15. You get a shout out if you're a patron at $10 or more. Thank you to the Twitch subs, Grandpa Dragon 1953, Aussie Plant Dragon, Pearl SS, Thunderous Dragon, Red Dribbon 3700, and Adam DeBomb. Thank you guys so much for subbing. Thanks to Paige, Oamek, to Maximillien, Inhoff, to Alexandra, Ornes, and everybody who supports this goddamn show. Thank you to all the new patrons at $5. I see you. I love you. You have no idea. Literally supporting the show. All right. In my own bin, as we've discussed, you are the reason the show can go on, even if I am, out of my element and out of the studio. So make sure that you guys are here next fucking Tuesday, first Tuesday, and then every Tuesday until I decide I need a maternity break, and then we will take a little break. But for those patrons worried about the content, don't worry. We're going to be banking content for y'all, making sure that we have enough. And I would love to go live and do some more just chiller streams for the patrons as I'm adjusting to new life as a mom. So don't worry, y'all are gonna get what you paid for. In addition to one day bitch caps, and of course everybody get your Bitchuation Room swag, bitchuationroom.com. Follow the show on Twitter, Bitchuation Pod, on TikTok and Instagram at Franny Fio. We will be streaming Tuesdays, 1 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Twitch. And remember, y'all, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. I'll see you in the bonus.